So the state is expected to call 16 witnesses to take the stand in its bid to nail Ntuthuko Shoba. That's as Shobas stands trial for the murder of Tshegofatso Pule in the High Court in Johannesburg. He's accused of orchestrating the murder of the then 28-year-old woman who was 8 months pregnant at the time. Mnisi has been tracking that story for us, and he joins us now in studio for a taste. Linda, good morning, of what's to come this morning. 16 witnesses. Do we know who makes up that witness list?
So it's quite important, Michelle, to take into account what has happened before. You'll remember that there is one person here in this case who has since been convicted. He's serving a 20-year jail term, and he was quite central to the arrest of Ntuthuko Shoba and us being here today. So the state will want to prove that his admission is, of course, the correct one. So he's one of the witnesses who
Malepane.
Yes, that is Muzigaisa Malepane, who will be taking the stand. We understand that part of those people include some of the police officers. They include some of Tshegofatso Pule's friends, Muzigaisa's friends. You'll remember the state saying that on the day that Tshegofatso Pule was murdered, Ntuthuko Shoba actually went to Muzigaisa Malepane's house, and there were two of Malepane's friends who saw him that day. So they are expected to be part of these witnesses.
I think perhaps just, if our viewers are listening to us discussing the story and they don't know the background to the story, just give us a sense again of how this young woman was killed.
So you'll remember just last year, Tshegofatso Pule went missing. There was a picture of this young woman, 8 months pregnant. Everybody was looking for her. She was from Soweto in Midlands. The last time she had been seen alive, she was visiting the father of that baby, who is the accused in this matter, Ntuthuko Shoba. So she was found hanging from a tree in Durban Deep. Now the police, after a short investigation, arrested Muzigaisa Malepane, who then confessed to the crime, saying that he had been hired to kill Tshegofatso Pule. He says he picked her up from Ntuthuko Shoba's house. He then drove to Newzroom, to a dark place, he calls it a dark place, and then shot her on the chest. And then dragged her into the car again, then continued to Durban Deep to then hang her. So that's how Tshegofatso Pule was found. So it will be quite interesting, Michelle, to find out if Muzigaisa Malepane, who is central to this case, will not crack in the stand, because the state is depending on his evidence to nail Ntuthuko.
It was the horror of the details of how she was killed at the time that struck such a chord with the public, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Michelle. I mean, at the time when the country was just reeling with gender-based violence and a number of women being killed, this kind of elevated things. I mean, who could have thought that a pregnant woman in South Africa could be killed? And I remember during her funeral, Mnisi was saying, where are the police to protect the woman? Where were they? Because we were during the lockdown when she was found. This was a time when South Africa was supposed to be very, very safe. But here we are finding ourselves in a position where an 8-month pregnant woman is killed. And at the time, obviously, no one had been arrested.
I remember her funeral service as well, just heartbreaking and devastating. And Ntuthuko Shoba, for his part, if I remember correctly, Linda, he's applied for bail several times, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. In fact, he has applied for bail 2 times. So the first time the bail was denied, he came back with new facts, citing an inmate conversation, saying that there was an inmate that he had met in prison who told him that Muzigaisa Malepane, he had met Muzigaisa Malepane in prison, and he told him that he had been arrested for killing his girlfriend, saying that there was an argument that ensued over the paternity of the baby. So the actual paternity of the baby had also come into question during these bail applications. So that new fact was not considered in court, and the bail was then denied. Last week, we saw him go back to court to appeal the first bail decision, where he had cited his personal circumstances. And the judge in there saying that, well, we would have to find something in the magistrate's ruling or in the procedures that they may have erred, but in this case there's nothing wrong that the judge did. I mean, you'll remember the defense citing Section 60, subsection 3 of the Criminal Procedure Act, saying that if the magistrate felt that she didn't have enough information, she could have used her discretion. The law empowers her to call for that. But the state then arguing that there's subsection 11 that says, well, if it isn't enough, the onus is on Ntuthuko Shoba, and taking into account the schedule, which is a serious offence, it's a Schedule 6 offence.
Yeah. So Linda, just as a parting shot, as we build up to the beginning so to speak, of the trial today. What has been his story about what happened? What has been his defense to date?
So he's basically said that there was nothing wrong at the time when Tshegofatso was with her. Remember, he was the last person that the family knew Tshegofatso to be with. She says they were very happy to welcome the baby. You know, he was very supportive. He did not know Muzigaisa Malefane. The only time he had interacted with Muzigaisa Malefane was during the time when Muzigaisa was selling alcohol and cigarettes illegally during the lockdown, and that's when he did not know. That's when he actually knew Muzigaisa Malefane, saying that, in fact, he had been very supportive, but the state coming up...
That he was looking forward to the baby, he said.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the state coming up with evidence that proves contrary to that, saying, in fact, you had been forcing her to abort the child. This was not the first child that you guys had. The first one was aborted. There were calls, cell phone records, which were quite central to that second bail application, if you remember, linking him, saying that, in fact, on the day that Tshegofatso Pule was killed, they had communicated about 23 times. So the state then proving that you actually know this person, you've been in contact since May until the time that Tshegofatso was killed. So he's basically said that he knows nothing about this crime and that he helped police to find the murderer, who's Muzigai said, because he gave them CCTV footage, he made himself available, but the state saying, no, you were only just covering up for yourself here.
So 16 witnesses called to the stand by the state as that trial gets underway. Linda Mnisi will be tracking it all for you, bring it to you right here on Channel 405.